Upgrades.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review. Today, we are bringing you kind of the latest and greatest, definitely, horror action comedy, vampire horror action comedy, and this is Abigail. Here's a quick synopsis. After a group of criminals kidnap the ballerina daughter of a powerful underworld figure, they retreat to an isolated mansion, unaware that they're locked inside with no normal little girl. And this is directed by Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, and this stars Alisha, who is from Scream, one of my favorite franchises, especially of late. She's been, even though she won't be able to close out the series, which I'm still really, really upset about, but she's excellent in those films. We get Dan Stevens, we get Alisha Weir, who is playing Abigail in this film, and we get the last role of Angus Cloud, and along with Giancarloesposito is also in this film. Now, this is a comedy. I know it's pitched to you as a horror film. I've seen every trailer. I've seen every poster. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a comedy. It is an action comedy. It's very reminiscent of Fright Night and things of that nature, in that vein of vampire horror comedy. So when we're introduced to Abigail at the beginning of the film as her being a young ballerina, and we get the plot to kidnap her, we see just the setup that happens here. And all these people converge to kidnap her. It is very simple in the plot, in the way this film opens up. It is simple as kidnap a little girl, get to the mansion, have to wait out for 24 hours. After that point, you could get your money. There's no way you thought this was going to work out positively for anybody involved in this project. But that's what makes this film so good, is that at no point in time does Abigail as a film take itself seriously. At no point in time. As we see them attempt to develop the characters and then gradually decide that it's not necessary in this film, which I was extremely happy about, because it was early scenes where you thought they were going to attempt to explain the motives of all of these bad people for kidnapping this little girl. But they do a great job of saying, we'll just sidestep that and just get to what people want to see. And that is maybe 20 minutes into the film, and we get the first attack by Abigail when they find out that Abigail is not a little girl. And that's when the film takes off. That's when the film gets interesting. That's when everything happens. That's when the comedic element takes over the film in the best way humanly possible. With vampire films especially, you got to be very careful, because a lot of people, it's humanly impossible to find a vampire film terrifying. But here with Abigail, they've gone, again, the Fright Night angle of saying that we don't necessarily need to be terrifying, we just need to be entertaining. So you're thoroughly entertained by everything that Abigail is doing here. The whole vampire ballerina shtick that this film has lands perfectly well, along with just a strong performance by its leads. That's all you ask for in a film like this. It has just enough heart to get by. We see Melissa and Abigail, and we see them share certain scenes, and we get to see just how much she cares for this little girl, in a sense kind of displacing the child that it's very briefly mentioned in the film that she has. But we understand, like, it's still this little thing where she cares just enough to make sure she was safe up until she turns into a vampire and Abigail attempts to kill everybody. And then it's a tug of war of, is it a little girl or is it a monster? It's clearly a monster. But the point that's the game the film wants to play with you, is that it leaves you in those type of situations in limbo. It never wants you to fully figure out exactly what the characters are thinking, especially the key relationship of this film. They don't want you to understand exactly what's going on here. But by the time we get through the film, and a very entertaining film throughout, like, this is the first time I can say the second act is possibly the strongest act of this film. By the third act, we get vampire tropes left and right. We know what these are. We know how those move in these type of films. In the second act, it's more just the jump scares, the more humorous elements of Abigail chasing and killing everybody humanly possible. This film is extremely gory, but weirdly not violent. It's a kind of odd thing to say. Like, it's a lot of gore in this film, exploding vampires and all, but it's not necessarily a gore. It's not necessarily a film that doesn't feel like a teenage kid can watch it. Like, yes, it's a tad bit language, lots of blood, but at no point in time does it seem just like it's too old for its key demo. And that's what makes this film work, is that it's still in the end a very solidly based um, horror action comedy. And it's beautifully directed. That's another thing too. The film feels more grand than the film is. Like, I think earlier this year we got Lisa Frankenstein, which I think was going for this same exact angle that Abigail hit, which is, hey, how about we be the funny horror film? And while Lisa Frankenstein missed on everything humanly possible, Abigail, missed on everything humanly possible. I didn't say that. Abigail manages to hit on most of it, and that's because of the performances. Like, it's really entertaining when it needs to be entertaining. It needs to have those funny moments here, because in the end, the premise is kind of silly, of all of these people coming together, these criminals, and all of them coming to kidnap one little girl, with none of them knowing who they're kidnapping this girl with or the ulterior motives of anybody else involved. That does not sound like a smart film. That does not sound like smart people. And yet you spend a very small portion of this film attempting to show us just how smart some of these people are, but it kind of goes out the way here. As it pertains to Angus Cloud, which is it, I think is his last performance. It's almost unnecessary in this film. But again, I think that's the key crux of this film, is that these humans are set up for kills. That's it. They're set up for strictly entertainment value here. And again, as long as you love vampire films, maybe a little gore, I think this could be a film that thoroughly entertains you. Because in the end, this is exactly as I stated. If you've seen Fright Night, if you've seen the 80s and 90s, when it was really prevalent to get these horror comedy action elements in a film, that's what Abigail is. Is Even if you saw Megan last year when it dropped, it was the same feel that Megan had, moments where it was just funny. That's how Abigail is. It has moments that it's just funny, and it's funny while still being directed extremely well, having an amazing screenplay for this film, because at any given time they could have attempted to overdo it, and they never did with this film. And that, to me, goes to the crux of what good writing and good direction is. It's saying that we understand what we got here, and we're going to push forward with this story. It's a little silly, super silliness by the time we get to the third act, where it feels a little muddled at times. But again, you're pushed through by likable performances by all the leads, and just great direction that keeps you intrigued on exactly what's going to go on from minute to minute in this film. And that's what makes a good vampire film. So, Abigail, which is currently available on all VOD platforms. I know I'm late reviewing it, but I saw it clearly months ago. And life happened, and I said, you know what? I still need to do a review for this film because I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, Abigail, out of a possible 10, I am going to give Abigail an 8 out of 10. This is one of the best horror films, comedies, action films of the year. So take any one of those categories, and I think Abigail fits nicely and into all those categories, and is one of the best films in all three of those categories of this year. But check it out. Let us know what you think. This has been another JVS movie review. Peace, people.